Embassy of the Dead, Chapter 7. Do you need a hand? Jake opened his eyes. Apart from a crack of light that shone through the half-open door to the living room, it was pitch dark. He lay motionless on his dad's sofa, his head peeking out from a sleeping bag. Something had woken him. Something in the room. Seconds passed. Silence. Still Jake didn't move. His eyes darted round as they adjusted to the darkness. He could make out shapes, the familiar outline of furniture, the glass doors that led to the farmyard. There was no one in the room, he was certain. He propped himself up on his elbow and listened. Still silence. I'm being stupid. He lay back down. Tomorrow he'd wake up early before his dad went to work and show him the severed finger. Dad might not believe the ghost bit, but he'd know what to do about the finger, and everything would be okay. It was funny, but just deciding to share his secret made him feel better. So much better, in fact, that suddenly he wanted to see the finger again, one last time, to check that it hadn't all been a dream. Jake sat up in his sleeping bag and stretched his arm over the edge of the sofa to fetch his backpack. But as his hand probed the darkness, he felt something he wasn't expecting. It was a pile of dirt. He rubbed it in his fingers. It was like the fresh soil of a newly dug garden. His hand wandered further across the depressing carpet until it came to something else. He froze. It was another hand. A cold hand that faded away from his touch. Jake gasped and sprang up, falling off the sofa and onto the floor, landing tangled in his twisted sleeping bag. His heart was hammering. He opened his mouth to cry out for his dad, but then, in the gloom, starting from the tip of a nose and working outwards towards the edges, a familiar long face appeared inches from his own. Sunken grey eyes stared at him. Fresh soil fell from the rim of the ghost's top hat and landed next to Jake's face. It'd be a kind service to me if you refrained from having a case of the screamers, boy, said Stiffkey. Jake nodded. He couldn't have made a sound if he'd wanted to. Stiffkey straightened up. I'm afraid there's been a terrible misunderstanding. He raised a long, thin grey finger in the air. Just let me explain, because I don't want to be here any more than you want me to be here. Even with his apologetic stoop, he must have been a good 6 inches taller than Dad, and his hat merged into the ceiling. He wrung his hands together. Now, where should I be starting? He muttered, pacing the room. I suppose I'd best skip the beginning, because the beginning's nothing to do with you, or anyone else for that matter. He paused and looked at Jake. You know I'm a ghost. Jake nodded. And you know all about ghosts? He didn't wait for Jake to answer. I'll take your silence as a no. Well, there's plenty more to haunting than clanking chains and fading through the walls of some fancy old house, ain't there? He paused, pulled out his pocket watch, and glanced at the clock on the wall. Anyway, can't stay long. The clock's ticking, and though my watch be the right time now, at the moment it mattered, it wasn't. Jake had no idea what Stiffkey was talking about. And I haven't spent a lifetime and a death time waiting to be undone, just to have one mistake and one child spoil it. So here's the thing. The ghost crouched down next to Jake and lowered his voice. I was given something by somebody for somebody else. Jake nodded like he understood. He didn't. Ain't no business of yours who either of them were, Stiffkey continued, and I couldn't say even if I wanted to, which I don't. Jake cleared his throat. What does waiting to be undone mean? The ghost's voice dropped again, now to a whisper. It'd be of no interest to you whatsoever to know anything about being undone or about the Embassy of the Dead. Stiffkey removed his top hat, seemingly as a sign of respect. More soil fell to the floor. Point is, we need to right what's wrong, which is why I'm here today. Earlier today, when I said good morning, you said yes. But you're not good morning, are you? Jake scratched his head. How can I be good morning? It's a polite greeting, not a person. Stiffkey looked cross. That's where you're mistaken. Good morning is a person. He shook his head. It's spelt different, like mourning a lost child. I thought you was he, and he's been specially licensed to talk to the dead, which you have not. Jake smiled. That's funny. He's called Good Morning, and you're an undertaker. Makes sense you know each other. An undertaker, says you? Well, ain't you observant? The ghost fixed Jake with a disapproving stare. But there's nothing funny about burying the dead, especially not children. Yeah, of course. Sorry. Jake felt guilty now. Making a joke about mourning to an undertaker was possibly a little tactless, particularly if he himself were dead. Besides, Good Morning ain't his true name, and I ain't ever met him. It's the Undoer code name he goes by, said Stiffkey. As I was trying to say, a delivery meant for good morning was received by you. He glanced around the room, looking nervous. So I'm very much hoping you still have the package. Yes, I've got it right here. I've not done anything with it. Well, that is good news. In which case, I'll be taking it back now and will say no more about it to anybody. Jake felt a surge of relief flow through his body. He was going to be free of the finger. He reached for his backpack and began to unzip it. And don't worry, he said to Stiffkey. I haven't told anybody about the box or about you. The ghost sighed deeply. Good. Children are the worst for keeping secrets. And though you're sensitive, you're still a child. The only thing a ghost dislikes more than a living child is a cat. Cats see everything. Jake thought back to the cat in the alleyway. It had seen Stiffkey before he had. What do you mean I'm sensitive? Sensitive to the ways of the dead, explained Stiffkey. That's another reason I thought you were Good Morning. You can see me, and there's not many of the living who can. Jake nodded, just grateful to be relieved of the burden of a severed finger. He took the box from his bag and lifted it up towards Stiffkey. The old ghost sighed with obvious relief and wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. And glory be that even a living child knows not to be opening a box that bears the mark of the embassy of the dead. Jake froze. But I did, he said. Did what, child? I did open the box. Stiffkey staggered backwards. His face, already grey, turned a shade less colourful. But you said you hadn't done anything with it. I meant I hadn't, given it to anyone or thrown it away. A look of horror flashed across Stiffkey's face. Then all is over, child. The embassy will know. And then what? Asked Jake, looking up at the ghost nervously. Stiffkey looked away, unable to hold Jake's gaze. He'll be coming for you. Who will? Asked Jake quietly, swallowing. He could feel his heart rattling his rib cage. Mawkins, said Stiffkey. He fixed Jake with an unblinking stare. Who's Mawkins? Asked Jake in a shaky voice. A sudden wind rattled the window. Outside a storm was brewing and a fog seemed to be drawing in around the house. Stiffkey let out a moan. First the fog, then the bone wolf will appear. Mawkins is near, boy. Leave the box here and then run for your life. And with those words he began to disappear, first from the edges until only his eyes, filled with hopelessness, were visible, and then they too faded from sight. Stiffkey! Hissed Jake. Wait! He was frozen with panic. He knew he was in terrible danger, but he didn't know what to do. He was about to run into the hallway when he heard the sound of the front door blowing open in the wind. Whoever or whatever it was that was coming for him had arrived. My goodness, that was an exciting chapter.
What?
We heard heard a lot of interesting new information there. So we've heard about Mawkins before, right? But now we know that Mawkins is quite dangerous.
Evidently.
What was Mawkins going to do? Do you remember from the last chapter we read?
No.
From the last one that we read about him, which was in the Embassy of the Dead with Maureen. Remember Maureen?
Mm-hmm.
And she...
Oh, does he put them in the Eternal Void?
He puts them in the Eternal Void. Remember, clause 7.3, death order. So Mawkins is coming to kill Jake and the Bone Wolf, whoever the Bone Wolf is. And we know that Stiffkey is waiting to be undone, but we don't know what being undone means yet. So, pretty exciting?
Yep.
And the next chapter is called The Bone Wolf, so we'll have to read that
Yep.
next.